Good evening and salutations, my GH fans. So, for the most part, this episode was pretty decent. There was one part that was just unnecessary, and I think you can take a wild guess what that part was. And that was the Alexis and Gregory scene with Violet in there. Violet's not there, and she wants to play frisbee, and Gregory decides to play with her, and he throws the frisbee and it winds up hitting Alexis. So they sit down, they start talking, and bottom line is, Gregory was like, "I'm not a fan of your work," and Alexis, is stunned by it. She's kind of taken back by it, and she's surprised, and so she starts to asking him why, and they go back and forth. My whole question is, why does it matter? Like, why does it matter if Gregory doesn't like your newspaper? So what? You have a lot of people that don't like your newspaper. Why are we sitting there spending so much time on him not liking your newspaper? I honestly tell you the truth, I was sitting there trying to write down the reasons of why he was meant to saying he didn't like it, and afterwards I was like, I don't care. And that was the shit Alexis. But for some odd reason, we felt the need to sit there and talk about that for a good 5 minutes. Um, and to Violet, more or less, was like, yeah, this is getting a little out of hand. Once again, it's amazing that, Violet can sometimes be the smartest person in the room. Um, Now, Alexis did sit there and mention Jackie as far as, I exactly remember what it was, but he said something, and, Greg was like, oh, well, it was about your integrity. I was like, you do realize what kind of newspaper this was before she started running it, right? But okay, sure. Now Alexis does ask a question like, "Hey, why don't you sit there and put your money where your mouth is? Why don't you sit there and write an article, or whatever?" And then you can have people sit there and debate it, whether they think it's good or not. And of course, at the end, Gregory doesn't take her up on the offer, so it's just like, yeah, that's what I thought. It's very easy to sit there and start judging other people when you're not putting out your own work. Granted, I mean, I know that Gregory does like he's a professor and stuff like that, but as far as like him putting out work and publishing and stuff like that, I don't know if he's done that. It's very easy for you to sit there and criticize someone about, let's say, a video or um art or whatever. But until you actually expose yourself and put your stuff out there, it's like, are you kidding me? And granted, don't get me wrong, everyone has a right to their opinion. That's 100% true. Um, but it is one of those things where it's like, so you want to put out something on the website? No? Oh, okay, yeah, exactly. That's what I thought. So again, conversation's moot. The scene is, well, pretty moot as well. So that's awesome. Brooklyn calls over Chase, and I'm gonna be honest. This whole 30 minutes, 40 minutes, a lot of those scenes could have just been. It could have been severely shortened. All she does is sit there and tells Chase about the fact that Lank is butchering her music, and that she needs to sit there and get it back. So she's like, "All right, this is where you come in," because I'm like, "All right, so Brooklyn, what's your plan?" Oh, the plan is to have Chase follow him around, aka stalk him, and try to get incriminating evidence on him, and this, that, and the third. I'm like, you do realize that you just said that he has like 2 weeks left of his suspension before he goes back to work. And you want him to be involved in your shady plan because why? Now, as Brooklyn's been talking, she's talking about her music, and she's referring to her music as her babies. And, Chase is like, yeah, this is you not getting over Bailey. This is you still grieving that, and not being a part of Bailey, in a way, the way that you were before. Of course, Brooklyn's like, no, that's not it either. Are you going to sit there and help me out? And Chase is like, no, did you not understand what I just said when I said I had 2 weeks left on my suspension? Like, you do realize that I'm kind of in the suspension because I wanted to defend your honor. Now, granted, I make that comment, but at the end of the day, that was on Chase to do. Brooklyn didn't sit there and say, do it or else. Like, Chase did that. But, it's like, no, 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 don't get involved with Brooklyn and her little crazy schemes. That's going to involve you losing your job again. So, he says no, and she's like, all right, fine. I'll figure it out myself. I'm just like, well, you could have had a phone conversation and, well, that would have shortened that whole conversation, but, whatever. So Liz decides that she needs to sit there and get away from everyone, and she wants to go to a place that's going to help her with whatever's going on. And at some point, they do mention Shady Brook, and she's like, all right, fine, I'll go there. I'm still close by, but I'm not so far away, but I'm not, like I can get the help that I need that she can't get there. Now, Finn is like, listen, I'll try to stop by as often as I could. And Liz is like, no. At first, they were fighting her tooth and nail just for her to go. Um, Liz is like, listen, I got to do this because whatever's going on with me is not getting any better. So they finally all agree, Laura and Kevin and Cam and, well, eventually Finn. Um, Liz is like, you can't visit me right now because more or less you're kind of the cause of the trigger. I mean, you're kind of the cause of this a little bit, or at least on a subconscious level, you know, he's the trigger for this whole thing as far as, Franco and not letting go and all that other stuff. So, she's like, she got to go, and they all agree that she's going to be going. And now here's my whole thing: they've been building up this storyline for a while. Okay, they've been building it up for a while, and granted, it hasn't been in circulation as much because they got like 90 other different storylines to go through. But my whole thing is like, all right, figured it out. Is her. All right, it's not the best thing, but it's not the worst thing. I don't know. I feel like when I look at it, sometimes I'm just like, it seems kind of underwhelming. Like if it was maybe if she did more damage or whatever, or actually like really hurt someone, so just beep, knock Chase over the head, then maybe it would have been a little more impactful. But the reason why I feel somewhat disappointed where it's going because I feel like at this point, all this is building up to, besides somewhat of an interesting storyline, is for the actress to go on break. She's going to a mental institution. Cool, so she's going to be on vacation for a little bit. Gotcha. Okay. Um, because I feel like that's where it's going. A lot of times with these storylines, like with Jordan, leaving the first time. I mean, granted, it had a lot to do with the actress leaving, but to be honest, if she would have stayed, she could have just used that time to go on vacation and just come back at a later date. Um, and I feel like this is very similar. It's like, oh man, I can't get the help I need over here, and I don't think ABC is going to want to build another set, so I'm just going to do something more off-brand, like not be here, like go on vacation for a little bit. So I feel like that's where it's going. So we got Marshall. He finally woke up, and Curtis is all like, listen, we're gonna sit there and work this out. You just need to come home. And eventually, they do all convince him to come, back to Port Charles, and Curtis is like, I'm not going to push so much, and this, that, and the third, and he blames himself for pushing, and Marshall away, and I was just like, no, this is still on Marshall, and even Marshall's like, no, you just wanted the answers, and I ran away, and then he says some sort of comment along the lines of, what if I sit there and I leave again? Well, we're not going to give you a reason. I'm like, that's not even funny, man. You like That's not even funny. I mean, this dude literally left. Now, granted, again, I look at this, especially the pills that he's taking, and it could be a lot more serious than that. I mean, he literally beat the living hell out of Joey Novak. You know, I mean, the dude was lucky enough not even be in a coma. My point is that part of me when he said that he was going to leave, he may leave again. I'm like, why the hell am I investing in the story? But again, we're talking about medication for whatever sort of episodes, whatever sort of psychological problems he's going through. Now, Stella does eventually get there. They're outside and they're talking to Stella, and come to find out, Stella knew about the pills and everything like that, and she probably knows a lot more. But Stella's like, oh well, it's his story to tell. I'm like, cool. So I guess we revisit this whole Marshall storyline in another 2 weeks because we gotta sit there and focus on Sonny and Nina and Carly and Wiley and Willow, and I feel like Nina. I feel like I'm missing some more people, but we gotta focus on them. So eventually they make back to the whole Marshall storyline in another 2 weeks. Who knows? Now I do look at this whole thing. Curtis went through a lot to get this information, and granted, he may get the answers that he's looking for. I'm still wondering about that whole deal with Selena. Like, how long is that going to go on for? Because I know he's not exactly too comfortable working with her, but he did kind of sign a deal with the devil. So, also, also miss Selena at this point. So, hopefully, she'll be back soon. Carly gets a text on her phone. I think she got it yesterday also, but she gets a text on her phone saying that the results are in. But at this point, the trial's about to start. So Sonny's there, and they get this trial started. They start with Nina first, and Diane. Well, first, Scotty tries to set it up to be very sympathetic. Let me just take a look at my notes for a minute. Yeah, so Scotty sets it up for Nina to kind of tell her story about why she wants to sit there and petition and her love and her affection for Wiley. Now, there was a couple of key phrases that she used, and I mean, granted, I'm I'm looking at this trial and I'm looking at both sides. Because I can see Nina's point of view. I can see everyone's point of view as far as people rooting for Nina. And also see everyone's point of view for Michael and why he should like why she shouldn't get visitation rights. So I'm looking at it both sides. But a couple of things that Nina kept saying was, oh Wiley's my connection to Nell and um love and family, and I never really got to spend time with my daughter, but he's my last connection. And it was just like, you do realize that when you start with stuff like, my last connection and, he's my grandson, he's my family, and things of that nature, it's not entirely reassuring. I get that that's how she feels in her heart. And I'm not denying that she shouldn't say how she feels, but when she starts saying things like that, it leads a lot of people to look at it and be like, you're not seeing him as a person, you're seeing him as a do-over for now, essentially. So she starts with that, and at this point Diane comes in there, and Diane's like, you did some bad stuff as far as Nixon Falls. You lied to everyone. You kind of lied. You essentially kind of did damage to Wiley by denying him access of his grandfather, because you hid him away from the rest of the world. And basically, Smith is saying that she did that as an act of revenge. Now, of course, Nina's like, listen, I'm sorry, I lied about it. And, I kept Smith saying, I'm sorry. And I'm like, you made it seem like you just stepped on somebody's toes. But, she did bring a fair point by Smith saying that not one person in this room has lied. I go so as far as to sit there and say not one person in that room has not done something bad. You know, granted, Nina's transgressions is a lot more recent than, well, pretty much a lot of other people. But, Scotty brought up some good points about the fact that Sonny gets to have access to Wiley. but not Nina. And I mean, Sonny is in the mob. I mean, it's danger 24/7, and yet you're allowing him to sit there and spend time. I mean, granted, Scotty didn't bring up the whole mob ties, but he could have. Um, Now, at some point, you know, I guess Sonny's in there kind of seeing how this trial's going, and he's like, I want to be put on the stand. And a couple of times Nina's like, "Yo, listen, don't do it. Like, I don't want you to sit there and lose, Wiley and Michael over me." And one of the things that Nina did sit there and say before this whole thing started, she was like, "Yo, you telling me that we can't sit there and work out something? We don't have to sit there and go through with this whole court trial." Um, but of course, they were just gun ho on doing it. So I was like, all right, fine. This is this is what we're doing. So I look at Nina's point of view, and I'm like, well, you did sit there and try to hash it out peacefully. I mean, well, not peacefully, but you did sit there and try to compromise, or at least her version of compromise. And now I don't sit there and think that Nina is in the well. Yeah, it sounds like Nina, but I don't think she is like the devil incarnate. Yeah, she's made a lot of mistakes, and certain mistakes that she's made has just been like the type of mistakes that she's made just made it seem like she didn't have a brain. You know, and some of the things that she's done, like as far as hiding Sonny with his family, partly out of spite, it's cruel on so many levels, it's petty on so many levels, and it's just like you took you know, his grandson away. You know what I'm saying? Like you separated his grandson from his family, and that's damaging in itself. So I'm not sitting there trying to go rah 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 for Nina, because watch my channel before, you know exactly how I get down with Nina, but she's not the devil incarnate. People mess up, and eventually they can sit there and at least try to learn from their mistakes. Um, and I felt like on some level, maybe even supervised visits wouldn't have been the worst thing in the world. But you know, this is the path they want to sit there and take, and it's going to be very interesting tomorrow to see how Sonny um is going to go with his testimony. I feel, to be honest, I feel like he's going to kind of go a little bit down the middle. He's going to sit there and think about the stuff that Dante said. He's going to probably throw a bit of shade at Nina, a little bit, but he's also going to sit there and try to stand up for Nina. Now, again, this is one of those things where it's like Sonny is doing what's in his heart, but at the same time, it's one of those things where it's like, bro, you got to kind of pick a side. And the fact that you're going to do this, I feel like he's going to do this middle of the road thing. It's like, bro, I mean, you're picking, you're going to pick Nina over your family, or you're going to sit there and do the right thing and pick your family over Nina, or you're going to sit there and do something that's just completely asinine by trying to do this, trying to, both sides against the middle, or middle road or whatever. And I feel like it's just going to wind up backfiring in his face. But you know what? At this point, they're taking Sonny's character in a direction that some people do like. A lot of people don't like. I'm still just kind of in between. Because I'm a Sonny fan, but I do recognize that Sonny has been doing some things that has been very questionable at best, and acidifying at worst. I feel like that's about it for the most part. I think I kind of covered the majority of the episode. Yeah. So with that being said, I'm gonna go. I want to thank you for watching. Be safe. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below, and I will see you in the next video.